9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lines in. Start. £2, 15 ounces.
Even that out, you know.
They definitely got to do it the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
You're right, I got too many clothes on. You're ready.
Fish.
£2, 13 ounces.
Look at that, what Cullen did to that fish.
Ah, man.
That just tears them up, man.
I should have took a picture of that.
Come on, come on, come on. 4 pounder. So, I mean, conditions are way different for us than
Oh, yeah.
oh, yeah.
We will take a picture of that fish. You're ready.
7.
£6, 11 ounces. 6 pounds, 11. Oh, come on, Butch. Get the fin out. You've got 15 minutes, Gerald.
Took an 8 pounder.
Oh. You there.
Woo!
We're gonna take a picture of that one. Hey, don't get him down in there. I'm gonna have to give you a penalty. Man, that's a big bad boy right there. £6, 15 ounces.
That's it?
You can look at it if you want to. Something different.
Well, I was waiting on that water temperature to hit 57, and it hit 56.8 right now, and I just said, man, this looks right, felt right. That's like the magic number for a swim jig, 56, 57.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lines out, end of round.
Hey everyone, you just got to watch a little video of me catching a few fish on Jordan Lake for the last event for Major League Fishing Stage 3. That was in Raleigh, North Carolina. That was a big fish factory. Lots of 6, 7, and 8 pounders caught in that tournament. It was one of those situations where we got there and that water temperature was in the low 50s when we got there, and right whenever the tournament was starting, it was starting to get into that upper 50, and some places even started touching 60 degrees. And that initial 60-degree water is when a lot of those fish, those pre-spawn fish, get in position, and you can catch some really good stringers. In a place like that, it showed out, and it showed that, you know, they said we was going to catch some big bass there, and getting that first wave of fish, it really was impressive. So I just wanted to explain to everybody what was really going on at that place. So we didn't get but a day and a half of practice, and in that day and a half we had to practice 2 different lakes, Jordan and Falls, and then the final day of that event would have been on another lake called Harris. And you can see Jacob Prosenick, congratulations to him, went over there and sealed the deal. But it was a very different situation. Even though those lakes were in the same regions, the big differences between Jordan Lake, the first lake that we fished on, and then day 2 and 3 we went to Falls Lake. The big differences between the two, Falls Lake was just about at normal pool. And at normal pool, there's not a lot of cover with water in it. You know, their flats and their bushes and their banks are very flat sloping banks, and so there was a lot of cover that didn't really have very much water, and then the water was falling, so it fell 4 inches from practice to the actual tournament on Falls. So that was a big curveball for a lot of guys. We were going to Jordan. We started the event on Jordan, and when we got to Jordan, the lake was 3.5 feet high, and it was falling during the tournament. So you had 3.5 feet high conditions, which was way back into the bushes and flooded willow trees. And then the perfect scenario for that is a falling water scenario. It really positioned those fish on the outside stuff, and you had plenty of cover to fish, so it really spread the anglers out, so you can catch them everywhere. So I caught them really good on Jordan. I had 25 pounds or so, 24 pounds go after that day, and I was sitting in the 12th position after day 1, which I was really pleased with. I had 2 big fish that was a deciding factor in my weight. They caught them even better on the first day of that event. I think Kelly Jordan had 80-something pounds, was a total of every fish counted. It was a lot of weight, and I think there was a 30-pound, if you counted the best 5, there was like a 30-pound stringer, several 28-pound stringers, and then a lot of bags over 25 pounds. So big ones showed up, but the cold front was still in and out. So we started out that morning, I think it was 32 degrees or something. It was freezing, and it kind of knocked them down a little bit, and we had that post-front day. So that's kind of some of the things I want to highlight. Whenever you have those initial water temperatures achieve 60, the reason they're just now getting to 60 because you've had a lot of cold weather and you're just now coming into the tail end of winter and rolling into spring. But every time you start rolling into spring, it's not like someone just hits a light switch and says, all right, it's springtime. From now on, the water temperature is going to be 60. It fluctuates for a few weeks leading into that. So you get water temperature that'll touch 60, and then a cold front will come through. Normally happens the day before a tournament. That's just how cold fronts work. They know when we fish tournaments, and it's going to come in and mess things up, make it difficult. So there's still a lot of adjusting that is required, and it's very, very hard to do. Guys get burned this time of the year fishing tournaments because they get stuck on something, and a cold front happens, and then they won't get the bites, and it's really hard to make an adjustment. It's not an easy thing to do, so I'm not acting like there's a perfect way to practice it or understand it. It's just you have to understand that it's an inconsistent time of the year. You could be a hero one day and a zero the next, so don't get down on yourself if you end up zeroing, because the next day you might go out there and catch a giant stringer. So that's what happened to us, and the weights were drastically different between Group A and Group B, but we still caught a lot of big ones between 6 and 9 pounds, even on the cold front day, just not as many. So the first day on Jordan, I went there and I knew these fish were getting in position to spawn. They wanted to be in spawning positions, but you had to cover a lot of water and to find the right little areas. So you may run them, I don't know, several hundred yards of bushes and not get a bite, and all of a sudden you're pulling one little deal, one little pocket, or hit the magic stretch where a wave, what I'm calling a wave is you might have a school of fish that'll migrate together and inhabit an area. So if you picture in your head, it happens in minutes. Whenever they decide to inhabit an area, those fish weren't living there. They're not resident fish. They actually moved up to the cover and started positioning themselves to spawn. So when I'm saying it happens quick, a fish can swim a mile in like 12 minutes or something crazy like that. So these fish could be offshore 1 minute and all of a sudden pull up onto shallow cover to start spawning the next. That's how fast it can happen this time of the year. So you got to cover water until you run into them. And a really good bait to cover water is a chatterbait. When that water temperature's anywhere from 56 and above, I like to throw a swim jig. And then whenever you get to the area where you get a few bites, then I'll go to flipping a missile Dbomb. That's my favorite flipping bait. Everyone knows that. So basically, it started out cold. And so I started out that morning running pockets with isolated cover with a chatterbait. For some reason, I don't know why, you can catch them in colder water temperatures than a swim jig with a chatterbait. It's just a really good, tight wobbling, more subtle presentation. A swim jig, I like to make a lot of movement and be obnoxious with a swim jig. I guess that's maybe why it doesn't get as many bites. But the chatterbait, it seems to catch them when it's a little colder. So that morning, the water temperature was probably 53, 54. So I started out running pockets with a chatterbait, caught a few key fish real early to put on the score tracker. This is just, it's a Jackhammer 3/8, and it's just green pumpkin on green pumpkin Zako. And I just put a little bit of chartreuse on the tail right there, and it's got a green pumpkin blade on it. And I was throwing that on, this is either 16 or 18, I'll mix it up, but this was probably 18 because I was throwing it around a lot of cover where I could lose a big fish. So I was making sure I was upgrading on that. That was 18-pound Sunline Sniper, and then this is the ultimate chatterbait rod. This is called a Chatterbound from Alpha Angler. It's a 7.2, it's composite, it's half glass, half composite. And it's made for a chatterbait. That's why we call it a Chatterbound. The way it loads up is just right, and that was my deal. And I was throwing that on a 7.3 TWS Diawa Tatula. And you know, a lot of times I'll throw a chatterbait on an 8-to-1, and the reason I do that is because I'm covering so much water so fast during this time of the year that I'm moving towards the bait the whole time. And so I got the trolling motor on 75% or so, and I'm casting out in front of the boat, and I'm winding that thing. You just can't keep up with it with a 7-3. And then a lot of times when a fish grabs it, the bite's so aggressive they come towards you. The speed of the reel, you always want more speed when you hook a fish, no matter what. A lot of times people slow their reels down just for their control of the bait. But when you're moving towards the bait the whole time, don't be scared to put on the fastest reel possible. So that was my setup for the chatterbait. And then as the day warmed up, I went to some areas where I knew I can get bit. So it wasn't real necessary for me to slow down and to go through them really fast with the chatterbait and locate them. I already kind of had an area pinned down. So I went right to work with the flipping stick. This is a hitter, a 7.6. This is the flipping rod from Alpha Anglers. And I had that with 60-pound Sunline braid. This is the FX2 braid. And I went straight to with my favorite color. That's the Zematoma Dbomb, and then that's a Beast Coast half-ounce permamat weight with a 5/0 hack attack hook, and I snail knotted the braid to the hook. And the reason I had the half on is because the bushes were fairly flooded. They had a couple 2-3 feet of water in the bushes, and I wanted to be able to. It wasn't one of those things where you really had to dob the bait around in the bush. So I wanted a little bit more weight just to get it in there, get it down, get the reaction bite, pull it out, and make a lot of flips. I can make 3 or 4 flips to a bush in less than a minute, and they'll hit it right when it goes in there. So it's a really efficient weight Texas rig setup for going in and out of flooded brush. And so I was throwing that on an 8-to-1 Diawa Tatula reel, and you can see in the video, that's what I caught that 611 on, was this right here. And kind of got my day really started. So as the day went on, one of my favorite things to do around flooded bushes is swim a jig. You catch big ones on it. You can cover a lot of water, and then you can go back through those areas and flip once you find those areas that have those spawning bass. This is a prototype swim jig. This is one that we're building right now at Beast Coast. It's a signature series swim jig of mine. you know, working with those guys is really awesome because they really let me do what I want to do. And we go back and forth on the trial and error phase, but when it's over with, I have a swim jig in my hand and my flipping jig that is something that I know I'm going to use, and I can't sell something that I don't think is something I'm going to use. So I really like working with them because they let me design it, and I feel like we've come up with the perfect. This is a big fish swim jig. This isn't something that you want to throw on a little bitty rod with light fluorocarbon and catch 1-pounders. This is made for 50-pound braid. This is 50-pound Sunline SX1 braid, and this is another prototype rod that we're making at Alpha Angler. This is one that I think we're going to make this one my signature series over there, but it's designed for a swim jig and a frog. It's a 7-foot action. It's got it's a little bit faster tip on it. It's kind of heavy, kind of stiff, but it's just right for swimming a jig. But when one gets it, you can set the hook with braid. But what's cool about my swim jig is it's got a heavy duty hook in it. I swear you catch a tuna on this thing. It's like it will not flex at all. And the way we designed the head and the heavy duty weed guard, and then, you know, with the line tie and everything, and then the keeper, it's made for putting a bait on here, skipping it around bushes. And when you saw me catch a 615 with 15 minutes left to go in the third period on Lake Jordan, a 6-pounder ate this thing. And I set the hook as hard as I wanted to with this 50-pound braid and this swim jig rod, and it didn't move the hook. And I could have boat flipped this fish if I wanted to. That's what I was looking for out of this swim jig, and Beast Coast did it. Look for this bait to come out soon. They just put it into production, and I think we're going to call it the Gorilla Swim Jig because it's made for catching gorillas. And you know, it's one of those ones that you'll take down to Florida with you, and anywhere in the country where they're spawning, and you got chances to catch 6 to 10 pounders. That's what this is. And so that was my setup for Jordan. Of course, I went to falls and I did not catch them. And the difference was I didn't have the same kind of cover, and I try to run different kinds of water. I never really got on them at falls, and a lot of anglers didn't. It was not set up the same way as Jordan. I wish we could have fished Jordan for the duration of the tournament, even though they said falls is a better lake. I just don't think, with the water being a little lower, I just don't think those fish got in position as quick as they did on Jordan. I feel like Jordan was up a little, so as soon as it got to that magic water temperature, those fish got there right away. And I think that's why they showed out so good. But it's probably great now. The water temperature's probably been in the 60s for the past 4 or 5 days since we left, and it probably got there. But I feel like it was a random deal, and you still had a lot of fish on a lot of pre-spawn stuff over there at falls, and we just didn't catch them over there to advance into the Harris Lake. So, but anyway, I wanted to show you a few fish catches, and then I wanted to explain to you what was happening over there for this time of the year. It's you can pretty much chase that 60-degree water all over the country and have very similar situations. If you go to a lake and you look at it on Google Earth and you see a river system coming into it, and you got a little bit of muddy water coming into it on Google Earth, a lot of times those lakes always have some sort of bushes or cypress trees, especially in the southern region. And on the East Coast, you can go right to those areas and start swimming a jig, throwing a chatterbait and flipping a D-bomb, and you're going to catch some big fish. So just remember, 50, 56, 57 degrees and above, throw my Gorilla Swim Jig, and when you find those areas, pick up a missile D-bomb, and early in the morning if a cold front comes through, definitely start out with a chatterbait. It's always a good one. And what you see behind me is Lake Chickamauga. We start practice here on Sunday. We've been hanging out in between doing a little turkey hunting and stuff, and we're starting to work on tackle now to start stage 4 of the Bass Pro Tour. And this lake right here was 6.5 feet low when we got here Sunday, and right now it's only 4.5 feet low. So in the last few days it's risen 2 feet. Not quite sure how much it's going to rise before the tournament starts, but the big factor is it's a constant changing condition this week. It'll probably change throughout the tournament. As the water rises, it starts filling up some of these creeks. This creek behind me right here is completely dry a few days ago, and now it has enough water in it to probably hold a bass. So that's how much these fish are wanting are going to be able to change and move with the rising water. Same thing, water temperature is just now getting to around at 60 degrees. We're going into a warming trend. So I think there'll be more pre-spawn here, only because the water is low and it's rising. So those fish are probably going to wait on that water to stabilize before they really spawn. You'll probably have some spawning, but I don't think it's going to be full blown with the constant water conditions. But look for giant fish to be caught again this week on Monster League Fishing, MLF, big ones. And there's going to be some big ones on this lake. It's one of the highest lakes in the country. You'll probably see some 10-pounders caught, definitely some 7, 8s, and 9s. Looking forward to getting out there and hoping we can get in the mix and getting to that second cup. We qualified for the first cup, but we got one more tournament to go to qualify for the second cup. So anyway, hope that helped y'all out, and we'll give you another recap and maybe show you some more fish catches after we catch these monsters on this lake.
End of round.